Hello, James from the Crafty Pint here, and welcome to the South Australian edition of our Year in Beer 2025 podcast series. We've got 6 guests for you on this show in 3 groups, 3 pairs. First up, we've got Bryony Levick and Steve Brockman. They joined us last year, sort of cast an eye over the state scene in 2024, and they're back doing the same in 2025, the highs, the lows, the trends as they've observed them. After that, we have Alex Marshall and Josh Talbot from Bowden Brewing and Nola Adelaide. Nola, a fantastic craft beer bar in the centre of Adelaide, celebrated 10 years this year, and Bowden Brewing underwent significant expansion, so they've got plenty to talk about. And then after that, we're joined by Gareth and Azo. They were 2 of the people driving force behind Adelaide's Beer and Barbecue Festival. That marked 10 years of operation this year. At the same time, they said it wouldn't necessarily be continuing in its current format. Looks like there might be some news to come on that front, but they've got a lot of experience in hospitality and supporting independent breweries in events outside of beer as well. So we have a lovely sort of broad-ranging chat with them about where they're at and where they see things going. So if you want to sort of find out what's been going on in SA in 2025 and what you might see in 2026 and beyond, join us after the break. Cheers.
This episode is presented by Mogwai Labs. Mogwai has one of the most diverse yeast collections available for brewers and other beverage makers in Australia, including classic strains, mixed fermentation and foraged cultures. Visit Mogwai Labs, that's mogwailabs.com.au and get in touch today.
Steve and Bryony, welcome to the show once again. How's things?
Good. How are you, James?
Oh, apart from forgetting that we had this call until 20 minutes after we started, I'm going pretty well. But I guess that's the nature of trying to record so many of these things in a short space of time. But I guess maybe we'll start with, how 2025 has been for each of you. Steve, I don't know if you want to kick off and sort of talk about the year that's just been for you and AMSAT and your role at the IBA.
Yeah, no, it's been a big year. AMSAT's kind of going from strength to strength. We've had a busy year of getting more barley, South Australian grown barley, into people's hands, which is great. And then as far as the IBA and stuff goes, obviously, big year in the IBA. We're also just on the verge of starting Beer SA here in South Australia as well. So taking up a lot of my spare time, of which I don't have a lot of it with the small child. So it's been going well.
And for people that don't know what Beer SA is, do you want to give us a bit of an insight into that?
So it's going to be a push going probably into next year. It's an important year here in South Australia because we have an election. And we've just seen the distillers and the wine industry get some pretty hefty government grants locally. So for us to kind of achieve those similar grants, we need to have basically a state-based organisation. So that's where Beer SA is going to come to the party. Mm-hmm. And it's not meant to replace the IBA in any way, shape or form. It's just meant to complement at the state level. So there's a few different issues that we deal with in South Australia that are a little bit different to the national conversation. Mm-hmm. And so having Beer SA is kind of a way of us being able to kind of address those things.
Yeah, well, I think we've seen success with similar, you've got Wobber that's been around forever, but, they're having success in getting funding and grants and I guess attention from the beer industry. There's craft beer strategies elsewhere. It's something that we've addressed in our national article, particularly because I'm based in Melbourne and there's no association in Victoria at the minute, and I think they're probably missing a trick. I'm sure there's individual businesses getting support, but in terms of getting that, I guess, more wider sort of government attention, it does feel they're missing a trick there. So maybe watch this space. I'll start trying to prod the right people in Victoria to do something. And how about for yourself, Brian? How's 2025 been? You obviously have your fingers in lots of pies and seem to pop up all over the place not just in the beer world, but other parts of the booze world as well.
Yeah, no, it's been a steady year. Connecting with the beer community, some personal highlights this year for me. Still lots of judging at a national level, getting to Queensland Beer Show for the first time, and back to ABAS and Sydney and Adelaide, of course. Mm-hmm. And also some of the big festival in Adelaide this year with Beer and Barbecue. That was a great highlight, connecting with the community, big weekend. Mm-hmm. And also another highlight for me, getting to Grainstock.
Yeah, I thought you might lead off with Grainstock. Everyone that went there loved it, but you seem to be particularly enthused by it, I thought, so.
Thank you to Steve and AMSAT. We had a little minibus and a ute head over from SA with a pretty solid beer crew from SA. And I thought it was a wonderful time to kind of connect not just beer industry, but we got to know some other areas in distilling and baking, and stand in the fields where the barley came from. Was awesome.
Yeah, and then did you do it straight through from Adelaide in one shot, or was there an overnighter on the way? I forgot to check how you'd cover that, because it's a pretty great distance to the Riverina.
Yeah, no, Steve organised. It was a wonderful tour dad, as he became known.
Yes, I got the nickname Tour Dad. We decided, like all the buses, we're kind of stopping off at different spots along the way, but we popped into 23rd Street Distillery in Renmark to see PB there. And it's always a good start to the morning when you start tasting whiskey samples before 10 a.m. As a driver, I had to spit, but I wasn't seeing many other spitting going on from the other brewers on the bus. So it was a pretty merry affair. But 10 hours from Adelaide straight through. Yeah. So we got in rather late and had a quick dinner and then straight into it the next day. So it was great.
Nice. Well, and I guess you might need a bigger minibus or a bigger bus next year, given how well it all went.
I've already flagged it to the boss. The boss is up at Sea Brew, or Brew Asia, sorry. And he was kicking himself for missing it. So I think there'll be a bigger bus, if not more buses. We'll just send a drove of small buses across. So
and I guess what you do at AMSAT as well, it puts you right in that, the sweet spot for such an event as well. Like yes, it's effort putting the bus on, but you need to be there. It's kind of the place for you and your business to be seen and be networking and stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously just a great conference. Like I've said to people, like out of all the conferences I've been to all across the world, as far as beer and other bits and pieces that I've done, Grainstock is probably hands down easily the top one or top two that I've been to. So just the camaraderie, it was right place, right time. And Stu and Brad obviously did an amazing job out there. So we're happy to support it as AMSAT, and we'll continue to do it until the heat death of the universe, I've said. So we'll keep on going every year.
So at least another 5 years.
Yes.
Excellent. And I guess you're our SA gurus once again in terms of the the beer, the brewing, I guess the wider beer community picture in SA. How have things gone this year? I know it's still pretty tough out there for a lot of people, but how have things been going for the industry?
Yeah, no, I think it's been I think there haven't been so many new breweries opening, but I can think of a couple who've expanded, which has been good to see. The Bowden Brewing expanded, and in Barossa, Ren Beer moved to the main street of Tanunda. Just another steady but tough year, I'd say. Been a focus on the hospitality tap rooms, been some creative events. I've run a couple collaborative beer and food events, which were fun, like beer and pizza, craft and crust, and sips and snacks events. Small collaborations. Just slow and steady, I would say. How about you, Steve?
Tough year. I think that'll be the theme of everyone talking. We saw a couple of closures here in South Australia. So we saw Yellow Matter close down. Shifty Lizard closed, but then has re-emerged. So someone from Wollonga has basically taken on that business. So that's good to see. Brand SA switched which government department they were part of, but they've renewed their kind of push. So we've had a Buy SA Beer for SA kind of campaign that's been going on. It's only been launched in the last couple of months. So there's still support there from the government. We're hoping to strengthen that with Beer SA. Theme-wise, I think there's a few people in the room that are kind of looking forward to at least a warm summer in which we can kind of get some beer sales going. So,
And then, those that are doing well, what is it you think they are doing well? Is it the right venue, the right space, the right offering, in terms of, those that are managing to ride out hopefully the tail end of a tough few years?
Yeah, I think the people that are doing well are really focusing on what they're bringing to the table. I think, you look at, Kickback's a good example down in Aldinga. I always say Kickback's a great example. It's the right place, right time, right area. That area needed something, and like Kickback has kind of filled that. They've got activations pretty much every night. It's really quite a busy offering, and, they keep things fresh. They've got, new things on the menu all the time. They've got new beer releases. They've got new events coming. They're doing like left of field stuff. So I think venues that kind of are focusing on that kind of stuff. Shapeshifter ran a fermentation festival kind of mini market the other week. That was well attended. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm seeing, kind of people almost becoming event managers as well as craft brewery operators and stuff like that. People that tend to be doing those events and then tend to be doing pretty well.
And you right? Sorry, go on.
And I think in terms of the venues, it's good. Something I'd love to see more of is these small collaborative events like these collaborative markets. I think there was a medieval themed event, a Little Bang, and smaller festivals like Festival of Darkness.
I saw some photos from that Fire and Froth at Little Bang. I think they said they got 500 people through on the day, of which at least 50% were dressed up, and it's like people in full Gandalf wizard hats and robes and stuff like that. And it's like, where do these people exist the rest of the time? You know what I mean? If there's 250 or 300 willing to come to a brewery on the same day to drink, Baltic porters and walk around with staffs, then it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and there's also now like Westfest, 3 breweries collaborating with their bus tour, Shapeshifter, Big Shed and Bowden, and then there's an eastern suburbs version as well. It's been running, I think, for the second year this year. Little Bang, 612, and Suburban Brew. So just little small collaborative events, I think, has been the way to go.
And what about on the liquid front? Are there any sort of notable trends, or even just standout beers that have had people talking around the traps?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a trend. I mean, as a malt salesman, I've definitely seen the trend of actually the advanced hop product ending up in beers. So and we had Pfaff Brewery start, so that's Lockie Crothers. Used to be at Ballistic. He started a contract brew company called Pfaff, fresh as effing F. So the rest of the words on a podcast. But he popped up, and then he was using some advanced hop products. Radler, Shapeshifter did a collab with Evil Mega Corp. Pirate Life's done a few kind of these terpene boosted or hop keef product beers, which have really kind of hit the zeitgeist here in South Australia, I think. And I think there was also another push. Maybe I'm seeing more of it because I'm at the coalface of it, but those Aussie ingredients. So a lot more people kind of pushing for Aussie ingredients to be included in beers or spirits for that matter. So I'm seeing it across both industries.
Well, I guess there's more opportunity now, isn't there? AMSAT as AMSAT is a new I guess element of a more established business, but really focusing on providing that, I guess, more curated, more sort of craft malt sort of thing to producers. And I guess we're seeing on a small scale, but a number of hop growers around the country, local yeast suppliers. It does seem there are more opportunities there, I guess, mirroring what's happened in the producer side of things. Now there's actually suppliers sort of, feeding in on that scale as well.
Yeah, I mean, to that as well. I mean, I got across to the WA Brewers Conference, and they've got a WA malting guild now. There's enough maltsters in WA where they've got their own guild, so that's just awesome. I mean, I always say to people like this year I was lucky enough to go over to Europe and kind of taste all the beers there, and I was constantly quizzing people. I was just like, why do you think the beer industry here is great, or what makes English beers so great? And they're like, well, we're using local ingredients, and the Belgians are the same. So we're using local ingredients as much as possible. So maybe the trick to creating these amazing like ESBs or those amazing porters or doing some Belgian pales or whatever, maybe the trick isn't importing those malts and those hops and those yeasts. Maybe it's making it with as fresh ingredients as possible and letting kind of the ingredients shine. So that's kind of been my philosophy when I'm out there chatting to people.
So excellent sales pitch there, Steve. Hopefully you'll get your end of year bonus on the back of this.
If we get some more malt sales, yeah, totally.
So I had some interesting chats this year. There were 5 brewers from SA lucky enough to get invited on a Czech Republic brewery tour. And had some nice chats with them. And since that tour, I've seen a few more classic styles popping up. There was a Rausch beer from Bright Star. I think Little Blessings are working on a Czech Pilsner. in the reviews I've done for Crafty Pint. There's been a couple of ESBs. But yeah, just a little bit of soft return to some classics as well as all the advanced hoppy.
Yeah, I guess just a bit more of everything other than overall beer sales. There's, certain styles that have come along more recently sticking around, but then some of the older ones coming back. I think, we did a piece more than a year ago about the revival of interest in, I guess, more UK British styles. But I guess the craft lager thing had been building for a while, but certainly I think we've seen a few more Belgians come around again this year as well. Brian, you mentioned earlier all the judging you're doing. Any standout beers there, that have sort of really caught your eye, amongst the trophy winners, and any from your home state in particular?
So SA, top of the head comes to mind, the Royal Adelaide Beer Cider Awards. I got to judge a lot of the hoppy beers, and it was at the beer of show was announced as Eclectic Brewing's Mosaic. Was it? No, what was it? Can't remember
Mosaic
the name
Theory.
of the beer. Mosaic Theory. Yeah, that's the one. And I know Kickback's IPA is always solid. That came back again with solid gold.
No, Eclectic was a good story as well. I mean, he's sort of, a guy who's been home brewing, wherever he's lived for decades, I think. And he just sort of, come along, watched a few years ago, not much of an online presence, not much noise around it, but clearly making fantastic beers and just being a lovely guy, having a good time,
Yeah. And he's in the process of building a newer, bigger production facility, actually.
Yeah, good stuff.
Lucky enough to be on his table at the awards show, just sitting there watching, and then I got clued in just quickly from the head judge that possibly keep an eye on Chris, and so I had a look at him to watch his full reaction of him actually winning the beer of show, and he just burst into tears. So that was a pretty special moment this year.
Yeah. Oh, there were some lovely photos of him and his wife, I think. Yeah. So it's some real nice. You can see how much these things can mean to people. I mean, there's probably some people who are part of bigger breweries or whatever, been picking up awards for years. I know they always love it, but when you, like with Wedgetail at Abers from WA this year, like small brewery winning a big prize, it really it's such a massive thing for people, I think.
Yeah, totally. It's a feel good story too, because I think everyone gets into the industry kind of with that fire and passion, and it's obvious that Chris has got that as well. And to see like kind of a smaller producer win, it just reminds you of the reason why you're actually in the industry in the first place. So
yeah, for sure. And looking ahead, then what are we? What can we look out for from the SA beer scene in 2026, or what would you like to see?
Yeah, no, I'd just be thinking about this question. I'd like to see, return to kind of the basics done well, and as I've spent a bit more time this year looking for stories and things to write about for Crafty Pint. I'm thinking more about the storytelling side that businesses can help with. It's not just about beer quality is high already. It's more than the beer. I'd like to hear more about the people, processes, and why people are doing what they're doing. Just a reminder to keep that in focus, because I think people in these tough times, people are responding more to the emotional level. Not just everyone's making pretty good beer out there, but just help people connect more would be great.
Yeah, and I mean I'll build on that as well. Like I think that conversation piece and those storylines, it's something I'm raising in government meetings all the time. So I have meetings with different departments in the state government here, and I pretty much have to tell the story each time of craft beer of like, we're over almost 90 breweries here in South Australia now. A lot of them are regionally based, so we've got more than 50% of our breweries are actually in a regional town, and they're just like the stalwarts of their communities. Like they're building community by having a brewery there, and it's not the easiest thing to do sometimes to launch a business and kind of honor the local community. But like a lot of these breweries have an inbuilt story in which they don't tell themselves, and collectively we don't tell as a story. So that's a kind of another thing that Beer SA will be kind of trying to address in the new year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a year of like collaboration, getting everyone together on the same page, and having that industry kind of rise up and do some good things. So yeah,
sounds great. I think on that note, that probably couldn't finish any more positively. So we'll call it a day there.
Always
Thank you
positive.
Always positive. Always look forward to positivity. But thank you so much for your time. Here's to enjoy your Christmas and New Year and summer holidays. And yeah, here's to a great 2026 for you guys and for the SA beer scene.
You too, James. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James. You too.
Cheers.
Mogwai Labs is Australia's leading provider of liquid yeast cultures for craft brewers. Josh and his team have built an incredible library of yeasts, including classic styles from across the world, mixed fermentation wild yeasts, and even Australian cultures foraged from native plants, flowers, and fruits. If you're looking for something special to make your beer unique, look no further than Mogwai Labs. They can even work with you to create custom yeast strains for your brewery. Once that yeast is perfected, Mogwai will keep it biobanked and ready to use whenever you need. If you're looking for the perfect pitch every time, hit up Mogwai Labs, that's MOGWAILABS.com.au today.
Alex, Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
And Josh has even snuck off. I thought you went off to do something important, but you actually went to get yourself a pint. And is this Naked Ned part of the 10th anniversary celebrations, or is that be too big a beer to start on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
It's not, but it is a big beer. I'm actually next door to Nola at the Stag right now, and they've got Bowden's IPA on tap, so had to crack one of those.
Very nice, very nice. Well, I guess it's been a big year for both of for two of the businesses you guys are involved in. So Bowden Brewing obviously expanded a few months ago. Nola, while we're talking, even though it'll be a couple of weeks before this show goes out, you're right in the midst of your 10th birthday celebrations. I think a couple of days from now, you'll be on the biggest of all the celebrations. So I guess, how's it been managing all that in the same year?
It's been really fun from a Nola point of view. I guess I'm across both somewhat, but yeah, planning this month for Nola was all kind of about nostalgia and looking back over the 10 years and what we love about opening that venue. And then I guess those things are, like, for me, number one, the beer and being able to support like indie brewers coming through. All the taps have always been independent, and that kind of kicked off before we even started Nola. Did a crowdfunding campaign to have people essentially fund our taps, and like from that point on, we've always had a commitment to keeping them all 16 of them independent, which has been pretty awesome to keep that going for the full 10 years. Where it's tough to do sometimes, but just like that choice and sticking to it's been awesome. But yeah, planning this month, we've got live music every night, which is very fun. We're taking we're doing a happy hour, so 2015 prices from 4 till 6, so you get some pretty cheap craft pints. But it's been awesome.
Yeah. And how's the sort of the Adelaide craft beer, indie beer scene looking like, 10 years on from when you first welcomed people through the door? Is it evolved in a way you'd like to see, or is it, how does it stand and where does Nola sit within it?
Yeah, I've been reflecting on that a bit, just doing a few chats about the 10th birthday. And like when we first started, like your little bang was literally in Ryan's back shed. We went and visited him, and Big Shed was in a far smaller shed than they're in now. So in that way, like those breweries have grown so much, and so many indie breweries have come through. But I feel like, I don't know, we always hit a peak a few years ago for craft in SA in terms of the amount of breweries, the amount of cool, fun stuff coming. And then unfortunately, just due to like economic climate, post-COVID stuff, like people have had to consolidate a bit and it's contracted. But I feel like just now there's a lot of positivity in the industry in terms of like growing, a lot of more limited releases coming through. It's just as hard to get tap space now as it was 10 years ago. I feel like there was a period there where the likes of like your Four Pines, Pirate Life, Stone and Woods were kind of paving the way for craft to come into taps. But unfortunately now, well, unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. Like they've been bought by the bigger guys, and it's kind of once again hard for the indie brewers to sneak in taps. So that's another, like, as I said, pretty proud of Nola, sticking to the 16 taps of independent and always supporting those little guys.
Whenever I go in recently, see how it's evolved, like talking about how it's evolved over the 10 years, it's good to still see some of the original names we had on the tap board from 10 years, but then there's also like a large number of new, SA and interstate independent faces on there now as well. So I guess it shows that, some of the original brewers are still on there, but there's also sort of that new era coming through as well, which is exciting in the craft beer industry.
Yeah, for sure. And what about in terms of venue support for independent brewers? Like, has there been much other, support in your peers in the sort of the hospo world? I mean, there's not much or anything like NOLA, I guess, but have you seen sort of much positive change in terms of support for indie beer across other pubs and bars across the city?
In terms of Bowden, sorry? Is that
no, just in terms of any support for sort of indie beer across the city over the last 10 years.
There's been a lot of, I guess I've noticed like a lot of, well, not a lot, but like when you seek it out, there is a lot of support for collaborations between independent, I guess both bars that pour independent as well as breweries that produce independent. So there is a lot of opportunity, I guess, in terms of collaborating to create events, special occasions to go out, unique beers, and yeah, I guess even promotions and things. So there are still a few, or still a decent number, I guess, of local independent craft supporters around South Australia, I think.
And what do you reckon sort of got you to 10 years in such good stead? Is there a key to surviving as a supporter of indie beer through these tough times, Josh? Why do you think, you've made it to this stage and still be able to, practice the model that you launched with?
Yeah, I think like a lot of luck came into it early days for sure. I guess me and Al specifically went to high school together, and we kind of discovered craft beer at a similar time. I was over in Aberdeen and fell in love with Brewdog over there, and then came back here. We wanted to start a brewery ourselves, but had no money, no knowledge of brewing really. And so we thought, all right, how do we get around the industry? And like NOLA was like a craft beer bar was the next best thing. So we got as much money together as we could, maxed out credit cards, got it going. I think it was all originally just fueled through passion for just wanting to like try as many beers and get as many beers as we could into the venue. And luckily we met some pretty switched on like hospo brains along the way that teamed up with us for NOLA, and that kind of brought in the whiskey, the New Orleans kind of element, and yeah, live music as well. So that I think just from the start it kind of felt pretty whole as an offering. There's a few different reasons for people to come in, and then over the 10 years, I think craft has changed. Like I think craft beer has just become more and more just beer. And so whereas people originally might have come into NOLA to discover something awesome, they still do, but then they're also like people kind of expect a bit more of that offering everywhere they go now as well.
Yeah. And talking about, I guess providing that beer. So Bowden's been around a few years now. You tell us about, I guess the 2025 on the brewing side of things and the expansion and what that's meant for the brewing wing of the operation.
Yeah, so I guess we've made it to 4 years, I guess, just past 4 years now. So yeah, that's a good milestone to hit. But I guess 2025 was a pretty big year for us that we decided to expand the venue side of things. I guess relatively early on, but in particular the last few years, we've been, I guess on a good note, we've been filling up all our small venue seats. In winter, the inside's always packed. In summer, we never have enough seats. So we decided to take the plunge and expand out of our gates into the wider Plant 3 building. So it's a pretty major undertaking. I suppose we spent a good half year. We picked the quieter months in the I guess the winter period to try and get most of that work done. But now we've expanded into a big 1,000 person capacity building, double function spaces upstairs. Installed 2 more kitchens and another couple of bars. I think in our building we've got 4 bars now. So it's been a pretty exciting 2025 for us. And we managed to get it all done and launch it for our 4th birthday. So it was a pretty big celebration, that launch birthday for us. So it's been a pretty great year so far.
Yeah. Big one on both fronts. And any sort of standout, apart from, I guess, the 10th birthday and the expansion, any sort of standout moments, whether it's stuff you've done yourselves or stuff you've been involved in or beers you've put out that you've been particularly delighted with?
There's been a few, like, I'll stop harping on about our birthday and the launch release, but we did release, I guess, our special birthday beer. Each year we release a Cake My Day variant, and this one I thought was particularly nice. It was a barrel-aged creme brulee imperial stout at 10%. So it's probably been one of my favourite releases this year. I guess the other exciting beer release, which is about to be released, and I probably can't say too much, and it's sort of always been something that we've been wanting to get involved in, was the Carwyn Cellars Cadman calendar. So we've actually made it in this year. It hasn't been fully released yet, so I can't give you away exactly what it is, but that sort of gives us a good, a good way to sort of brew something that we wouldn't normally brew something for craft beer people, something a bit unique and exciting, and something that gets distributed all the way around Australia and potentially even some overseas. So,
yeah. I'm intrigued to know what it might be, because when you say something we wouldn't normally brew, I wouldn't say you have put particularly tight strictures on what you've brewed, given some of the stuff that I've had from you in the past. So it must be fairly out there.
Yeah, it's both an old and new style.
Okay.
But yeah, something that we haven't actually brewed at all within our 4 years. Took a plunge, and I guess we almost tried to create our own style slightly with it, but
yeah.
I won't give too much away, but that might narrow it down a little bit and people can start guessing. So
yeah. And what about looking ahead to 2026 then? Is it a case of just settling into the new digs and making sure that, the beer's coming out, the quality it always has? And what about you guys at Nola? Have you got eyes on more venues within the group or any future expansion?
Yeah, so for Bowden, I think a lot of it will be finding our feet, finding what our new norm is. We've already begun sort of shuffling our packaging splits between canned product versus keg direct to taps. With the larger venue, we're obviously pouring a lot more beer, and I guess we're looking to focus our efforts on pouring as much beer fresh as possible directly to our local community here in Bowden. This larger sort of space will let us do that. So I guess there'll be it'll be a bit up and down for a while until we find our feet properly. And then I'm not really too sure about beyond 2026. So yeah.
One step at a time. What about on the hospo side of things then, Josh?
Yeah, well, Nola's lease comes up next year, which is an interesting one, which is fun. We'll re-sign, so we can rest assured Nola will be around in some form. But yeah, I think after being around for 10 years, you do kind of think how long does one concept last, and how much do you need to reinvent yourself to kind of stay relevant. So I think we've already started thinking about it. Not sure exactly where we'll go. Whichever way we go, there'll always be 16 taps of independent craft beer at Nola. I think it's just a core part of what we do. But yeah, there's potential to add a bit more space to the current site that we're looking into. And then, maybe just kind of a potential little refresh of the concept. But as far as craft beer goes, kind of business as usual. And I'm keen to do more events. We've got Festival of Darkness we host every year. We've done a sour beer variant of that once before, but I think more things like that just bring the local community together, and as many interstaters that can be bothered traveling down to SA that we can get. They're always the most fun events for me. So I think more of them in 2026 I'd be keen on.
Yeah, I think we're sort of seeing a bit of a revival on that front, and sort of whether it's hospo businesses or breweries realising there needs to be maybe more of a focus on the event side of things, just to sort of give people a reason to come out. It feels like we're still trying to get people back into a pre-2020, pre-pandemic mindset and get them back out again. So kind of makes sense. 100%.
It was such a big part of it for the first 5 years of Nola, if not more. I think our whole marketing ethos was just put on fun events and that'll get the word out. And we just kept doing that, and it seemed to work.
Nice. Well, good luck with that. And we're sort of looking at what about the wider industry? Any sort of hopes and dreams for whether it's on within SA or just more generally for the beer and hospo world for 2026 and beyond?
Yeah. So I guess you talking at the start about Beer and Barbecue Festival here and their 10th year celebration and change in direction, I guess sort of got me thinking a little bit about it. It would be nice to see some independent craft beer led events or festivals in that space, which I think is quite doable as well, like festivals by craft owners for passionate craft lovers. Obviously I'd like to continue seeing more collaborations between venues and breweries and everything as well, which is very achievable and something I guess we want to try and focus on as well. But yeah, I guess ideally it'll also be good to see, I guess, just on the beer production sort of, or like the production side of things, push to sort of reform the excise tax, to make it more affordable, reduce costs, so that we stop seeing some of these breweries that we grew up, or we came into loving, starting to go into administration and shutting down. I think there'd be a lot of potential there to reduce costs, keep beer costs down for customers, as well as keeping more breweries intact. So hopefully coming forward there'll be continue to be a big focus on that. I know there is a push going forward with all of that at the moment. So.
Yeah, I think there has been for a long, long time. So hopefully there's some sort of momentum at some point. Yeah.
Hopefully we get some results. Or
What about yourself, Josh?
I guess I'd like to see, and I probably think there will be more smaller breweries opening up, and hopefully with their own tap rooms to visit more and more. I think the wholesale, like opening a brewery straight to the wholesale world, is a scary, daunting task. Currently, even 10 years ago was, but I think the barrier to entries now are a lot higher than they were when we first started. So I think there will be more and more kind of like that tap house, cellar door style brewery venue, which like that was always Bowden's first goal anyway, was just to open a place that people came and tried our beer as fresh as it could be. And then we opened into COVID. So out of necessity, we started selling beer like straight to direct to consumer and then elsewhere. And it's kind of like wholesale is part of the business, but the primary focus has always been the venue, hence the expansion this year. And I think it's my favorite way to enjoy beer is going to where it's brewed and chatting to the people behind it. So hopefully more and more tiny breweries opening up all over the place would be fun.
But not so many that you don't get 1,000 people through the doors at Bowden, obviously.
Yeah, we still need to keep our capacity up.
That's great.
The entertainment centre, so anytime there's a big event on, where we get swamped.
Yeah, nice. That's great. No, well, thanks so much for joining me. I know you're in the middle of the 10th birthday celebrations, so I hope the rest of that goes well. And yeah, I'll make sure I pop into both venues next time I'm over in Adelaide in 2026.
Sounds great.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having us, and we'll see you when you're over here next.
Yeah, for sure. Cheers.
Thank you.
Gareth Vaso, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I guess most of our listeners or viewers will know Adelaide Beer and Barbecue Festival, which has been more places than Adelaide, became one of the country's biggest beer festivals. But you guys, I guess it's just one of many things you do in the world, sort of beer and hospo and events and stuff. Do you want to give us a bit of a potted history of what you guys get up to?
Yeah, the real slimmed down version of this story, which we've told a whole bunch of times, is we come from a hospo world. We run bars and nightclubs and pubs and that kind of thing. And alongside of all that, we always worked on other people's festivals, music festivals mostly. So throughout the sort of late 2000s, early 2010s, things like Soundwave and Big Day Out and Parklife and Future Music Festival and Groove in the Moo and all those kind of big touring things. And they all kind of took a bit of a dive in 2013-14. So we kind of got to a point where we just wanted to do something. We wanted to fill that gap, and so we had to start a festival of our own. And we by the nature of what we were doing in the pubs, we were friends with a whole bunch of brewers and chefs, and it was right at that kind of very burgeoning moment in Australia where it seemed like a brewery was opening up every 30 days in Adelaide, but yeah. So we thought, we'll bring all those kind of three passions together, which was food, booze, and music, and throw them all in the mix because South Australia didn't have a flagship beer event. So
yeah, and was that during the King's Head era when you were all SA produce at the King's Head? Is that right?
Yeah, we had the King's Head from 2007 to 2020. We gave the keys back at the start of COVID. So yeah, we were the go-to for basically every brewery that launched in South Australia. We were the first keg buy for a whole stack of them. We were the first stop when the Pirate Life boys came to town, and when Little Bang was selling their first kegs, and so all of those people we sort of grew up with around that industry. And it's kind of funny, we had 10 years of the festival this year, and there's obviously a lot of 10th anniversaries of breweries and other brands around the beer industry all happening in 2025. So it's very much our festival grew up very much alongside the beer industry.
Yeah, and at the time as well, we had another venue named Jack Ruby, which was an American style like speakeasy diner, dive bar thing. So that tied in with the event as well, with the popularity of American barbecue and everything as well. So that bar specialised in global craft beer. King's Head obviously was well established and a great source for local beers. The American joint was a more global approach to craft beer and obviously American style barbecue.
And we managed to get over to the States a few times and do some research in that area. So
yeah,
well, you'd have to, wouldn't you? Yeah, and I guess so. It was but beer and barbecue, but I guess the entertainment and the music thing became a huge part of it as well. I mean, and so how was the 10th anniversary? I mean, it's not too many big events make it to 10 years, so how did it go?
It was great. It was a great event. I think it achieved everything we wanted it to achieve for its 10th birthday. There was, there was the increase in the caliber of acts that we were booking and had booked previously, which is always a focus of ours to just increase that content. It was well attended. There was a really good vibe and a lot of positivity around the show and on the weekend. So, yeah, I was really happy with how the event went. I think it's.
I think we finally learned how to do it, without too much hassle. After 10 years, it seemed the most drama-free event that we'd thrown.
Yeah,
but then in a way it was sort of 10 and out to an extent. So obviously there was the announcement around then going, look, it's the last one, but it's not really the last one. We're just changing the format, kind of thing. And it's sort of. It sounds, it's living on, and it sounds like it's going to sort of continue to live on in some way. But I mean, that was obviously, we were thinking 10 years. I guess with what's been happening in the event space, when you see, is beer and barbecue going to fall by the wayside? It's another bit of a, dagger blow to the heart, but it hasn't. It's just been, I guess, things are changing.
It was on
on
an edge. Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, it was. It's easy to sort of look back now and be like, oh. Yeah, we're going and we're not going, but it was a genuine conversation that Gaz and I were having about the future of the event, and I think it was on an edge. It could potentially have not continued into the future, and it's just by good fortune that we've discovered an opportunity that may see the brand live on. But by no means was it a guaranteed thing that was going to happen in 2026.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the same token, I mean, we were trying to have a pretty honest conversation with people, with the punters that were, they're very loyal to the brand, and if we were to sort of be a bit more cloak and dagger and try and pull the wool over them, that like this will be the last one, and it felt like a very kind of deliberate ploy to sell tickets or something like that. I don't think that would have worked for us or for our. For our punters moving forward. So, yeah, look, it was open-ended because we at the time didn't know what the end was going to be. And, I think, I said before, we were talking to half a dozen venues about potentially taking it on in different council areas and that kind of thing. So, and those conversations are just starting to really form up now. So, it's been a good 6-month process to find a direction that we think it's, probably going to head in.
Well, so watch this space. Maybe is the
look, we'd actually, I mean, the first people that will find out are the brewers because they're the lifeblood of the festival, right? And we rely on them coming and supporting the festival, and especially the established and new brands. So I think we did a tally, and there's been something like 250 beer brands come through the festival over those 10 years, and a lot of them aren't around anymore, and but that. The content, there was a dozen or so that had been at every one of those 10 events, and that new content was always something that our punters loved, and we love bringing guys from interstate or like brand new brands in South Australia that people have never seen or heard of and probably wouldn't get their hands on. So the brewers will be the first to find out, and then by nature of that industry, probably you'll be the second to find out.
Yeah, indeed. And I guess in terms of the wider event space, like. It's not easy. So, why do you think it is that you said that the 10th actually, even though might be the last at its current location. You said it was like the least troublesome. So what do you think's carried you in good stead to get through when so many other events have either fallen by the wayside or just had to get much smaller?
Look, it was the least troublesome from a logistical point of view. It wasn't the least troublesome financially, but but it did. Look, it did okay in the end. It did, it certainly didn't set any records, but it became a much more expensive proposition than it was 5 years before that for doing the same amount of numbers through the door. So, like the economics of it is, the way that show was presented just wasn't working financially, and like we're a totally independent business. We don't take, commercial sponsorships from from the big end of town. We do little bits and pieces here and there. So it was something that if we were to continue to do it, we didn't want to be risking, like our own livelihoods, right? We've got kids and rent to pay and mortgages to pay and that kind of thing. And although we love doing what we do, we've lost money on plenty of events over the years. We just can't risk that on such a big scale anymore.
Yeah. And looking ahead, so aside from the watch this space, what are any other plans, within whether in the hospo side of things or event side for you guys in 2026?
Yeah, watch this space. I kind of just need to finish off this year. I'm currently mid-tour in the operations team for the World Supercross. So, yeah, this is not my home decor. I would probably not pick a piece of artwork like that, but I got a big 3 weeks ahead of me, or 3 more weeks. I've already been in for 2 weeks. So again, I chose about 10 years ago to focus more on the event side of things rather than the hospitality. Obviously, I'm still involved in hospitality businesses, and that's a passion of mine. But I like the events and I like the big production. So when we look at the events landscape locally at the moment, it's pretty dire. There's a lot of events that I have worked on for the last few years that are no longer coming through Adelaide specifically, and I think it is a real. It's a combination of things. I don't have the answers of it, but everyone out there is doing it tough. So that disposable income is not necessarily there anymore, and I think. Back on the question about of why we thought 2025 was somewhat of a successful event, it all comes down to the support of our dedicated customers, and it's a demographic of people that support this event that are like nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah, they're a bit less fickle than the music festival crowd, and
yeah, that's right. And they just show up and they just love to get beer and barbecue logos tattooed on themselves, and they they drink beer and they have a good time, and it's because of them that we're putting everything in place to try and restart and reinvigorate this brand for hopefully another 10 years.
Yeah. And I guess you'd have a pretty good regular contact with a lot of the local brewers in SA. Do you get a feel on the vibe sort of around the state as to how people? Because it's been a tough few years, obviously.
It's a mix. It's a real genuine mix of people that are hurting and people that are doing okay and people that are succeeding or keeping their heads like above water. So it's. The vibe is there's a bit more positivity coming out of the industry. I think, like you mentioned before, like people are seeing now the light at the end of the tunnel. I think, and that's starting to flow on with spending a bit more money on beer or seeing a bit more money come over the bar and stuff like that. So hopefully we can ride that positivity, and hopefully we can get people into.
Yeah, and I think from a business point of view, I mean, like as everyone would know, every brewer, every artist, every restaurant, they're just small business people at the end of the day, and like the brewers have felt it hard because they've had to really readjust the way they deliver their business model, and but the ones that have survived, and there's still more that will probably not survive, I'm sure, unfortunately, but the ones that have survived have had to just change that perspective and take what's going on now as a new normal, and if we grow from there, then that's kind of that's where they can see their growth. So
but it's also adjusting to the changes in taste, and obviously we see it just through the sales data at the event. brewers themselves have a more sort of first-hand account of it. But people are just actually drinking less, and they're not consuming, beer traditionally as what it was when we first started the event. So your non-beer categories are now dominating. For the reason that I don't know.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we own a live music venue that, trades week to week, with 2 or 3 shows every week. And the per head bar sales is about half what it was in 2019. So, and that's across the board. So, like, obviously, a couple of, a punk rock show might do a little bit better than, a folk show, but really on average it's about half the amount of sales per head. So every business has to adjust to that in the wider ecosystem of booze.
And that's a big drop off. It's not 5-10%. You can shave a bit here and there, but 50, half is. That's big, big number.
Yeah, and look, I don't know if that's. I don't think people are drinking half as much. I just think they're being smarter. They're drinking a couple of beers before they come out, and they're maybe not staying as long, or they're not coming to as many shows, or something like that. But yeah, there's definitely less money flowing through hospitality venues, and that directly then reflects back to those brewers, because we're a venue that stocks a lot of those independent brewers.
And if we look ahead, I mean, essentially, if you had one hope or dream for 2026, it's drink more booze, or or just more money floating around the economy.
More tickets to shows and drink more booze. It's pretty simple. I'm not sure why people aren't getting it.
Yeah. I mean, everyone asks me what I do for a living, and it's basically just I sell tickets and booze. That's it. Or try to.
Yeah. Is there much crossover with craft beer in the motocross world then, ASO?
Nah, not really. Unfortunately, all they drink is Monster and energy drinks and stuff like that. So.
Oh wow, there you go.
That's not my department.
Yeah, but in terms, I guess, serious though, would is there any sort of legislation or anything you think that can be done? The magic wand, the silver bullet, whatever that you think would really help your industries. Just give them a bit of a much needed shot in the arm.
I think in an events world, and when we're talking about beer, things like. Legislating that state government-owned venues or government-owned venues have to use local producers, that sort of thing is something that can be done really easily. Like we have, Gather Round is probably the biggest ticket item that comes through South Australia, and it's like it's Carlton Draft event everywhere, all across the state. Every pop-up activation that the AFL does is plastered with Carlton Draft. But opportunities like that are actually a really, really good public-facing. Easy win for governments to go, okay, well, we can support businesses without actually spending any money. Just saying, if you're going to use our venues, we build these ovals and stadiums with taxpayer money. You've got to sell independent South Australian owned beer through them. So there are like little triggers like that, which there's in the entertainment world, there's a lot of talk around a stadium ticket levy, where that money flows back through into grassroots live music venues. So there are levers like that we've got to be creative, because there's not as much of that traditional income coming in, and that's people spending money over the bar at rock and roll shows and buying tickets. So we've got to be creative with how that money flows and who it supports.
Basically, support local, whether it's beer or food or music, whatever it might be.
Yeah, look, I feel like we've been banging on about this since 2007 when we adopted this sort of strategy at the King's Head, but it's coming up to the 20th anniversary of talking this sort of rhetoric.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll sink in. No, well, that's great. Well, best of luck with future plans for beer and barbecue and everything else. Hopefully we'll be chatting on that front soon. But aside from that, enjoy the festive season, and here's to a great 2026. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, and thanks for Crafty Pint's support for the industry in general, but also our event over the years. It's been fantastic.
No worries. Happy to be involved. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
This episode was presented by Mogwai Labs. Many of Australia's leading brewers work closely with Mogwai to create custom yeast solutions for their beers, including Working Title, Bracket, Kicks, Ether, Cypher, Foghorn Brewhouse, Sobremesa, and many more. If you're looking for the perfect pitch every time, visit Mogwai Labs, that's MOGWAILABS.com.au.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.